Right now, in 2026, the world's biggest diamond company is watching its revenue collapse by double digits, even while it's pulling more diamonds out of the ground than ever before. That's not a typo, and it's not bad management. It's a business built on a 100-year-old idea that might finally be breaking. Today, we're going underground, literally to break down what it actually costs to build and run a diamond mine, how this industry quietly controlled global prices for generations, and why 2026 might be one of the worst years in modern history to be in the diamond business. Welcome to Trillion Dollar Problems. What it actually costs to build a mine. Forget what you've seen in movies. Nobody's stumbling onto diamonds with a shovel and a dream. A modern diamond mine is one of the most capital intensive businesses on the planet before it ever produces a single stone. Take Diavik, one of Canada's major diamond mines, built inside the Arctic Circle in the Northwest Territories. It cost roughly $800 million to $1.2 billion just to construct. And the site is so remote that heavy equipment could only be trucked in over a frozen ice road, accessible for a mere 10 weeks a year, in temperatures that regularly drop to negative 55 degrees Celsius. Every excavator, every generator, every piece of processing equipment had to arrive during that narrow winter window or wait an entire year for the next one. Or take Gehcho Kué, a joint venture between De Beers and Mountain Province Diamonds, also in Canada's Northwest Territories. Initial capital investment ran around $1 billion, and total procurement spending on the project has since surpassed $3.2 billion. And that's just construction before you even get to the actual mining. Here's the part that catches people off guard. The timeline from discovery to production isn't measured in months, it's measured in decades. The Avik's diamond-bearing kimberlite pipes were first identified through exploration in the early 1990s, and the mine didn't reach commercial production until 2003, roughly a decade of exploration, permitting, environmental review, and construction before a single diamond was sold. Gehcho Kué followed a similar timeline, with development stretching from 2006 to commercial production in 2017. So before we even talk about how the diamond business makes money, understand the entry price. Over $1 billion, more than 10 years of lead time, and often some of the most hostile remote terrain on Earth, just to reach the rock that might contain the diamonds in the first place. And might is doing real work in that sentence. Plenty of exploration projects spend tens or hundreds of millions of dollars on drilling and geological surveys, only to discover the deposit isn't large enough, isn't rich enough, or isn't economically viable to mine at all. Unlike opening a restaurant or a retail store, there's no small-scale version of this business to test the waters with. You either commit the full billion-dollar bet upfront over a decade before, for certain what you're going to pull out of the ground, or you don't play at all. How the diamond business actually makes money. Once a mine is actually operating, the revenue model looks deceptively simple. Dig up kimberlite ore, process it, extract the rough diamonds inside, and sell them. But the real genius of this industry for the past century hasn't been mining. It's been controlling supply. For most of the 20th century, one company effectively controlled the global diamond market, De Beers. Founded back in 1888, De Beers built a business model around deliberately restricting how many rough diamonds hit the market at any given time, selling them through tightly controlled distribution to a select group of approved buyers, and running some of the most effective marketing campaigns in corporate history to convince the world that diamonds were rare, permanent, and essential to any serious engagement. That system is a huge part of why diamonds carry a price tag that has very little to do with actual geological scarcity. Today, De Beers still operates on a similar model, though with less absolute market control than it had decades ago. Production is measured in millions of carats a year. Recent guidance has put full-year output in the range of 20 to 23 million carats, and the diamonds are valued per carat depending on quality, clarity, and size. At mines like Gehcho Kué, the average value has run somewhere between $60 and $90 per carat, though top-quality stones from premium mines can be worth vastly more. The real revenue engine, though, has always been that De Beers and companies like it don't just sell raw material, they sell narrative. A mined diamond and a lab-grown diamond can be chemically identical, indistinguishable to the naked eye, and yet for decades, The Mine Stone commanded an enormous premium purely because of marketing, provenance, and the cultural weight of 100 years of advertising, insisting that natural rarity is what makes a diamond meaningful. That's the entire business model in one sentence. Dig up a commodity that costs roughly $90 to $100 a carat to produce, then sell the story around it for multiples of that price. For most of the last century, that story sold extraordinarily well. Total De Beers revenue as recently as 2023 sat around $4.3 billion. But that story is now being tested harder than it's ever been tested before. Which brings us to the part of this video where things get uncomfortable. The hidden costs nobody mentions. Here's where the diamond business gets genuinely brutal. And it's not the classic hidden cost story you'd expect from a normal mine. It's something closer to an existential threat playing out in real time. Start with the basics. De Beers' own unit cost guidance for 2025 sat around $94 per carat to actually produce a diamond. That's before shipping, sorting, marketing, and distribution. Meanwhile, in the second quarter of 2026, the average realized price the company actually received per carat fell to roughly $105, down from around $155 a carat just a year earlier. Do that math. A company whose cost to produce sits near $94 a carat is now selling into a market where average realized prices have crashed toward that same number, which means the margin that used to fund 100 years of marketing and control scarcity is evaporating in real time. Add to that the remote location tax every diamond mine pays, regardless of market conditions, fly-in, fly-out crew rotations, ice road logistics windows that only exist for 10 weeks a year, extreme cold weather equipment maintenance, and environmental remediation obligations that follow a mine for years after it eventually closes. Regulatory compliance is its own layer of cost. International buyers require diamonds to be certified conflict-free under frameworks like the Kimberley process, adding certification, tracking, and paperwork requirements across the entire supply chain. But the single biggest hidden cost in this industry right now isn't operational at all, it's structural. Lab-grown diamonds, chemically real diamonds grown in a lab rather than pulled from the earth, have collapsed in wholesale price and are increasingly competing directly with mine stones at a fraction of the cost to produce. This has forced De Beers into aggressive defensive spending. Since 2024, the company has cut more than $100 million in annual administrative costs, slashed capital expenditure by over a third in a single reporting period, and even paused major operations, its Venetia mine in South Africa, historically responsible for roughly 40% of the country's diamond production, was placed into a multi-year suspension as part of the broader retrenchment. Layer on top of all that the fact that Anglo-American De Beers parent company is actively working to divest its stake in the business entirely, a sign that even the corporate owners of the world's most iconic diamond company are reassessing whether this is a business they want to keep holding. And it's worth pausing on what that divestment actually signals, because Anglo-American isn't a small player making a panic decision, it's one of the largest mining conglomerates on the planet, deciding that its capital is better deployed elsewhere. Increasingly, that elsewhere is copper, lithium, and other materials tied to electrification and the broader energy transition, where demand is structurally growing rather than structurally under threat. When a company that has owned the majority of De Beers for decades starts looking for the exit, that's not a comment on one bad quarter. It's a comment on where the smart money thinks the next 20 years of mining profits are actually going to come from. And diamonds are increasingly not part of that answer. Is it actually worth it in 2026? So after $1 billion plus construction bill, a decade of waiting, Arctic logistics, and now a genuine price war with lab-grown competition, is owning a diamond mine actually worth it right now? Historically, the answer was an easy yes. For most of the 20th century, this was one of the most quietly profitable business models on earth. Control the supply, control the narrative, and collect an enormous premium on a product that costs a fraction of its sale price to produce. That model built one of the most recognizable brands in the world and generated billions in annual revenue for decades. But 2026 tells a different story. With De Beers' own revenue falling roughly 23% year over year, realized prices crashing toward the actual cost of production, a flagship mine paused indefinitely, and the parent company actively trying to exit the business. This is arguably one of the worst moments in a century to be holding a diamond mine as an asset. The long term bull case still exists. Natural diamond supply is expected to shrink as older mines deplete and new discoveries become rarer. But that's a bet on scarcity mattering again in a market where consumers increasingly can't tell and increasingly don't care whether their diamond came from the earth or a lab. The honest verdict: for 100 years, a diamond mine was one of the best businesses money could buy. Right now, it might be one of the riskiest. That's the real economics of owning a diamond mine. The century old business model that made this one of the most profitable industries on earth, and the crisis that might be quietly ending it right now. Next week on $1 trillion Problems, we're heading back to the water to break down what it actually costs to own a professional sports team. And trust me, those numbers are just as wild in the opposite direction. If you want to keep seeing exactly how the ultra rich make and lose their money, one business at a time, hit subscribe because this is just getting started.